Hey,
Hey,
so could you give me a name and your major?
my name is Eli. I'm a communications major.
My name's Kat, and I'm an English major.
My name is Connor Mercer, and I am a communications major at Malloy University.
My name is Dr. Tom Kenny, chair of the Communications and Art Department.
My name is Chris Nash, and I'm an art major.
I'm Dr. Sarah Evans. I am a video game doctor. That means that I teach game studies, but also new media stuff, media production, some game design stuff.
What is your definition of a gamer?
My definition of a gamer, man, that's off the bat, good question. My definition of a gamer, I'm gonna go basic and just say somebody who plays games, somebody who really, makes time to play games.
I'd say a gamer is just anybody who frequently plays video games, like as much as a reader would read books. Gamer play games in their free time.
Well, I'm a lot more broad than most people. Everyone's like, oh, a gamer is like somebody who's super intense about it and they have like 1,000,000 hours in Call of Fortnite or whatever. If you play a video game in any capacity, I think you're a gamer, whether you like it or not.
My definition of a gamer is someone who enjoys stories and likes to actively play games, whether it's in competition or as a way for interactivity. Just like I consider a gamer to be a storyteller too.
I guess it would just be someone that puts themselves into the video game culture and community, whether that be casually or professionally. Someone who enjoys video games, essentially.
I'm someone who plays a game, right? So in game studies, there is this idea of gamer that is separate from people who play games, right? Because gamer is actually a specific identity that some people have and some people don't, right? So some people might say, I play games 40 hours a week, but I don't consider myself a gamer, right? Whereas other people, that's like their whole identity, right? They're like, games are my life. I play 40 hours a week. That's my only hobby, right? And it's like, really, it's more of an identity that you get to choose rather than like, it being something that is a definition.
What is your experience? What's your background in video gaming?
Man, I've been playing video games for so long. I don't even remember when I first started playing. I remember when my parents would take a family out east to go visit our aunt and uncle, or hang out with my cousin in the basement, and we would play Xbox, we would play PlayStation 2, he had a GameCube down there, we were playing everything, dude.
My dad and my sister played video games all the time when I was growing up, so I was always exposed to just playing games in general, whether it was a Barbie video game or my dad playing Uncharted.
Well, when I was a kid, we had the PS2, and I wasn't actually allowed to play most of our games because they were all rated T. But I would watch my brother play Jak 2, which was a lot of fun. The game I played as a kid, it was SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom, and I loved that. It was like a Mario kind of game. You could run around Bikini Bottom, beat up robots, stuff like that. Then we got the Wii, which I used, and my brother got the 360, which he used. I played it with Minecraft sometimes, that's about it. But around 2012, 2013, believe it or not, I got the Wii U and I stuck with it. So I didn't get an Xbox One until like 2019. So for the longest time, all I had was the Wii U.
I am someone who just never actively played video games even as a child. I had a friend when Final Fantasy VII came out. I don't remember what system that was. PlayStation maybe? Sega? I don't remember. But he would play it for like 8-9 hours straight, and I'm like, what? Can we like do something? Can we like go get out of the house? I would play a game for 30 minutes and I would stop. So the first video game system that I had was in television, and I would just play it sporadically for 30 minutes here and there. That would always be the same thing when I had my future systems growing up in elementary, middle school, high school, whatever it might be. I was never somebody who actively played games.
What is your path with video games? How did you get into it?
Started off early 2000s with my dad. He has a ColecoVision and a Sega Genesis that I used to play with him all the time. And then a PlayStation 2. Had a lot of the movie tie-in games like Chicken Little and all that stuff.
So I have played video games for as long as I can remember. I don't have any memories where video games weren't part of my life. I played when I was really little. Before really even I could play well or understand, I would also watch like my mom play video games before I was, allowed to play or old enough to understand how it works.
Do you remember the first video game console you ever played?
The very, very, very first one was probably a VTech, like the little kid ones with the joystick. That was my first one.
We had a Game Boy Advance growing up. Me and my brother both had it. My favorite game on that was Mario Kart, but yeah.
First console I got after I was born was probably the Wii, like everyone else. But I had a lot of memories of PS2, mostly like with those movie tie-in games and SpongeBob and all that.
Nintendo Entertainment System was the first console that I ever played.
How long have you been playing video games for?
Since I was probably like 8, so a while.
At least 18 years. I was very young when we got the Game Boys. What's interesting is you can tell what year you got something if you still have the box, because sometimes they'll change the design between years. I have the last Game Boy Advance SP with the special light on the screen, so that was about 2005-ish. So I would have been about 2 or 3 years old when I got that.
I've been playing video games for as long as I can remember. I played with my dad, so he was, I would be player 2. We would play Super Mario Brothers, Donkey Kong, all that stuff. So yeah, maybe like 4 or 5 years old, I guess.
Do any of your family members play any video games as well?
I mean, my sister plays Minecraft with her boyfriend sometimes. My cousin might play games, but other than that, I don't know. It might just be me.
My dad is big on the Call of Duties. He plays Black Ops and Black Ops 2 on the 360 still, but he actually has an Atari from 1977. He's got all the boxes and all the paperwork and everything, and I think that's pretty cool because it's, he's got a whole bunch of games with the boxes and everything. So it's just a little piece of history he kept.
At this point, I would say that pretty much everyone in my family plays games except for my dad. But like, we have different levels of interest, right? So I probably have the most interest based on I did my whole career on it. My brother is very interested, and my youngest sister is very into games as well. The middle 3 sisters, they play games, they like games, but they're probably not doing it as much as the rest of us, right? And my mom anymore, I don't think really plays.
How do your parents feel about gaming?
My parents are really indifferent about it. They got me my first console, an Xbox 360, when I was like 11 or 12 or something. I remember setting up my Xbox. Me and my dad made accounts. So like my dad has an account and I have an account. And the idea was that we would, play games together. I wanted to play Black Ops 2. I wanted to teach him how to play zombies. That never happened.
I think part of why I chose my career is because my dad hated games. And he hated when we would play video games. He had a lot of bad things to say about them. And I was the oldest, my brother is second oldest, and we really loved playing them. And so we would try to not play them if he was around or try to hide that we were playing them. But they were always a big part of my life, and I think that I was like, you know what, I'll show you, I'm gonna be a video game doctor now. So that's how it worked out.
How many consoles do you own in all?
Currently? I have, so I have a Sega Genesis. It's like one of those cheapy old ones. They're not old, it's new. I have a PlayStation 4, I have my Xbox 360, I have a PlayStation 1, my Switch. I think that's it.
Well, as a matter of fact, about a week or 2 ago, my friend showed me this website. You can catalog all your games. I've got at least 400 games, not including digital stuff. And I think I have maybe 15 different consoles, but that includes different versions. I have 2 PS3s, 2 PS2s, etc., etc. If I had to say how many unique ones, that would probably be about a dozen.
Ooh. Consoles I own in my house, I'd say I have probably 10 to 15. They're not all mine. My family's consoles and all that I include also, so probably 15,
PC, Switch. I have the Analog Pocket I got recently. The iPad I play games on sometimes. I technically have a PlayStation 4, but I don't really use it. So I will go with 4.
Do you have a favorite console?
Oh, a favorite console? Man, I'll always be partial to the 360 because that's the only console you can play Skate 2 on anymore. But man, for more like modern games and just like day-to-day playing, I'm on my PlayStation.
I like the PlayStation 4. It's just very standard, I'd say.
That's always tough. There's always a different answer. Some days I'm feeling Nintendo 64, some days I'm feeling the Wii U. I don't think I really have a preference for any of them. If I really had to pick, it would probably be the 3DS. There's just a lot of my favorite games. You can play all the DS games too, which is great.
My favorite console, NES1, simplistic, easy to use, 2 buttons, 4 hours, directions to go. It's very basic. I can actually play it, not lose. It's fantastic. NES1.
I would say PC would be my favorite console because you just have the most options, right? Like you can play most games. In general, a lot of games are not easier to play, but you get more control with the mouse and keyboard, you know? As well as like there's usually pretty strong online communities for a lot of the things, right? There's, you know, modding and stuff like that that you can do on PC that you can't do on the typical consoles. I also like that you can just get the games cheaper, right? So you can get them through like the Humble Bundle if you just pay what you want, and then you get like, you know, sometimes 20 games for like $10, right? I bought a Humble Bundle earlier in the week for $10, and really I only bought it because I wanted one of the games, and the game that I wanted, if I had bought it just by itself from Steam, it was $20. So I got that plus a bunch of other ones that I would have never tried for 10. And additionally, Humble Bundle, some of their money from the profits go to charity. So that makes me feel good.
Okay, so picture this. Go to a GameStop, right? Got some cash, about to buy a new game. What is your genre that you're looking for?
That's a good question. I'll be honest, haven't had the disposable income to go to just a game store and just pick up a game in a bit. Man, if I'm going out to get a game just for like pure enjoyment of it though, probably something to do with space. Probably like a science fiction kind of game.
I really liked adventure video games for a while. I really loved Syndicate when I was in middle school, so that was like my vibe when I got back into gaming all over again in middle school, but right now I really like shooting games.
It has definitely always been a tie between the platformers like the Marios and the racing games. And that's like kart racers, realistic racers. I'm not very good at the realistic ones, but I could destroy anybody in Mario Kart.
A lot of the earlier games in my life were platformers and easy racing games, stuff like that. And not that I don't like them anymore, but as I grew up, I enjoyed more story-driven games, more action-adventure, like the Spider-Man PlayStation games or the Batman Arkham, stuff like that.
I don't think I could say I have a favorite genre because I just like so many different things. And because studying games is part of my career and part of my, you know, just interest in general, I think that I'm always attracted to games that do something new and different and interesting, right? So, you know, no shade on anyone who enjoys these things, but like, you know, FIFA a million is not necessarily, you know, like my kind of game because I'm just like, okay, it's soccer. I would rather just go play soccer, right? But, you know, I played a game yesterday that was from that Humble Bundle and it was called Not for Broadcast. And it is basically a game where you are controlling like the broadcast for a TV channel. And you have to like decide like which TVs or which shows to like show, and then you have to show the commercial at the right time, right? But then sometimes crazy stuff is happening and you like want to put it on, but you can't. So it's just like a totally weird game. Like why would someone think of that? But also it's super fun, right? I also really like board games, which I think a lot of people don't consider as part of gaming culture as much, right? They think like video games is one thing and then board games is a different thing, but I like all of them, right? Like I have tons of board games and tons of video games.
Has your taste in video games changed over the years?
That's a good question. I think genres in video games, especially, are really fluid. So you can have a horror game that's like take Bloodborne for example, another really fantastic game. I played through that recently. Fantastic, I love it. But that's like, it's not in space, but it's technically a horror game, but it's like it's cosmic horror. So it's the unthinkable, the unspeakable. So I've been trying to get into more of those kind of games and like more of I guess just the FromSoft games in general. I like adventure, open world RPGs. I want to get more into those, but like over the years, I've gone from more like sports games because I started with Skate. I had Madden 25. I played sport games, and then I discovered like COD, and I got into the first-person shooters and everything, and then like H1Z1 and PUBG, and then Fortnite with this battle royale. I don't know. I've definitely changed, like I've moved genres, but I don't know. What was the question?
Yeah, I guess I started more with story games that just had like one direct flow, and then I moved more into first-person shooter games that was more open world, online gaming. And I think meeting people who also played video games made me want to get into games where I could play with them instead of just playing on my own.
I would like to hear your opinion on mobile games. What do you think about those?
Personally, I think it depends on the game. So like a franchised game like Call of Duty or PUBG, I don't think belongs on a phone, simply because you're not going to play the game the way it was designed to be played. You're not going to get the graphics, you're not going to get the connection, your ping is going to be garbage, your connection is just dog shit on a phone. But like, I play Monopoly Go on my phone. Like, I got this little bridge game I like playing. So like I think mobile games definitely have their place, but in the broader scope of video games, it shouldn't necessarily be like, remember this game you loved from an actual console? We ported it to your phone so it looks and plays worse, so you can play it and kind of hate it.
I really don't play mobile games. I feel like a lot of them are just the same formula, like the Candy Crush formula, I feel like is in a lot of these games, or those like ads you'll get where it's like, deliver these packages, and you know what I'm talking about? Like those weird route games. Yeah, like I don't know, I never really found them interesting because there was no point, no objective.
I don't like them. I think they're stupid.
Really?
I have a very strong opinion towards them, if you can guess. They're just not the same. Like, you can like them, that's fair, but they're not the same, and I don't like when people pretend they are.
I just think it's more time behind a screen that I don't want to spend. So I'm on my phone enough, messaging family and friends. I think it's a great way to make a profit. If you're a game designer interested in gaming, by all means go for it. There's a lot of money there if you have that interest. But I've played probably 3 mobile games in my life. I don't do that, sorry.
Mobile games are, I think, its own section. Like, you have PC games, you have console games, and then you have mobile games. I think the best mobile games are the time wasters. You know, you have one objective, tap the screen, don't hit the pipes in the sky. Stuff that can keep you busy while you're waiting for something to do. Anything more than that, I think it just becomes a console or PC game on your phone as like a gimmick.
I think mobile games are controversial. There's good things about them, and then there's really nefarious things about them, right? Like some of the subscription models and ways that they ask people to pay are very predatory. But I don't think that just by something being a mobile game makes it inherently any worse than other types of games, right? Like, you can do some really cool stuff with mobile gaming that is not possible on a PC or on a console, right? Like Pokemon Go is not possible with other technology. Like, it needs to be your phone, and that's something that you carry with you all the time anyway. So that's amazing that we get to, you know, play a game like that, where you're doing the real world and the Pokemon world. That wouldn't be possible without mobile gaming being a thing that exists. I also think that it has led to different innovations in game design, right? So, and I'm not saying they're necessarily good or bad, but they are definitely different, right? So kind of the time management games, that has mostly come from mobile gaming, kind of like sit and wait games, right? Where you have to kind of like do something and then you can either pay to like move forward or not. You know, there's people who need that kind of game, right? Not everyone can dedicate an hour to sitting down and playing League of Legends, right? Where you're locked into your team, you have to play the whole game all the way through, where people are gonna scream at you. People are probably already screaming at you, but you have to pay attention to one thing for an hour straight, right? A lot of people, especially like older women, right, who are taking care of kids, who are doing a lot of things, they cannot dedicate a full hour to singly do one thing, right? So mobile games are great for them because they can play as much as they want, put it down, walk away, pick it back up, right? You can play differently, right? You play differently with time and with kind of the strategies of the game. So it makes it more accessible to different types of people.
Do you prefer gaming online or just by yourself?
So I think it definitely depends on the game, for sure, whether or not I want to play with anybody. So like, for instance, Fortnite, I rarely play that by myself. I'll hop in a duo or a trio or a squad, but I'm not just gonna sit down and be like, let me play a solo. But like Minecraft, I'll load into that and I'll, with the intention of losing like 4 hours by myself in this game. Or like even Mortal Kombat, when I was practicing, when I was playing, training, if you will, I would just play by myself. I wouldn't. It would just be like computers, or it would be online battles. I wouldn't get into a lobby. I wouldn't play with my friends. I wouldn't do any of that. I would just kind of keep to myself.
They both have a place. I like playing online with friends, I think, most, because then I feel like I'm doing two things at once. I'm socializing and I'm playing a game. But I play Hearthstone pretty much every night before I go to bed because it puts me to sleep. But also, like, I like to play Switch by myself. Like, I love the Zelda games, and that's inherently single player. I played Dredge recently, and that's single player. So I think there are definitely really good single player games that I like to play, but I don't really necessarily think one is better. I would say, again, just because I'm so busy, that I like online multiplayer, just because then I get to keep in touch with my friends, do stuff with my friends, but also I get to enjoy my hobby.
How long would you spend on average gaming?
Yeah, so in high school, I used to play a lot more. I used to be a lot more liberal with my time. So I could sink 6 hours into a game after getting home from school. But more recently, you know, I do have those spurts where I have like a good amount of time and I don't want to do anything but just play a game. So I'll sink 8 hours into a game. But like more recently, getting home, like after work, after school and everything, I'm getting home super late. I still want to hop on the game. So like, man, last night I was on till 3. I got on at like 11:45. And I just, like 3 hours in my mind isn't that much, but for what I want to play and how long this week has been, I just want to sink like 6 or 8 hours into nothingness.
Probably like no more than 2-3 hours, and it's usually at the end of the day, so I'm really tired, and honestly it might only be an hour if I'm getting really tired. It kind of sucks because I wish I had more time, but I really can't do anything about that.
On a normal day, I'll go to school, I'll go to work, whatever the situation happens to be for that day. And then at night, probably like 9 or 10 o'clock, I'll get on, play a few games of probably Overwatch with my friends, and then we'll get off. So it's like 4 hours every night, like whenever everyone's available. Usually it's only like breaks for the bathroom because it's quick games, you know, not really doing anything else.
I would say, like, in general, I usually play at least some type of game, like every single day, basically. I do know that once I decided to study games, which was when I was in my master's program, I didn't play anything for like 6 months. And I think it was just because I was transitioning to think about games in a totally different way, because when something becomes part of your job, sometimes it can take the fun out of it. And truly, I can't play games without thinking of my research and thinking of, an academic way of looking at it. So I am always kind of like, oh, that's a really good design choice, or like, oh, it's interesting that that happened, right? So you can't turn that off once it's kind of there, but I do, in general, just kind of like play pretty consistently, definitely weekly, basically daily.
Do you enjoy watching other people play the game, like YouTube? Let's dive into that, or content creation. Do you enjoy watching other people play?
Yeah, I do. I find myself watching a lot of gameplay or just like streamers playing games often. Well, it used to be more often. I'm more into podcasts now, but that's neither here nor there. I like gaming content. There's a few creators I like. I couldn't tell you their names right now. But yeah, no, I'll spend some time watching some gameplay.
Yeah,
It is amazing to me that my 6-year-old son will watch other people play video games. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Watch a TV show, watch a movie, I just don't understand the appeal of watching other people play video games. If that's something you're interested in, I just don't have the interest there. It's telling a story, and maybe for those who are gamers and my son who are growing up today, that is storytelling and that is television to them. Just like how I think TikTok is television for a group of young adults today, that's entertainment for them. So I think it's the same thing for gaming.
In your opinion, what is the best video game made of all time, and why do you think so?
Any console, anytime, any...
Shoot.
Fuck. Okay. I'm gonna give you a list of 3.
Of course, I can do that.
My personal bias says Skate 2. Such a great game. The graphics are there for a game that was released in like 2011. The gameplay is there, the replayability is there, the story is there, the map is there, everything is there. The customability. Great game. Best of all time? I don't know. My mind wants to go to... You know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna just own this. Minecraft. And I'm gonna give you reasons. The player base has been consistent since it blew up, and it's only gone up. And while Mojang doesn't really release so many updates, the updates that they do release are coveted, and they're covered everywhere. Their player base after their updates go up insane. Their rates are stupid. The addition of servers, the addition of mods, the customization of everything, the survival, creative, story, adventure, dungeons. There's so much to this game. It is so far beyond blocks that what it started as. It's so far beyond that. And the beauty of it is while it has all of that stuff over all of these years, you can still play the base game and build a house out of fucking dirt. And I think that is awesome. Like nothing competes with that.
I would say Syndicate. That game really got me back into gaming again because it had a storyline, like you had to do these certain objectives, but you also got to go around the map and do these little quests. And one thing that I hated about it was that it would get to 98% and there's really nothing else I can do but side missions, but even just exploring the map. And it's very history based, and I never was really into history, so being able to learn about it through the game was pretty cool.
I always go back to Mario Kart Wii. They could get to Mario Kart 15 and I'd go back to Wii. It's just something about it that none of the others have. I go back to all of them, but I go back to Wii the most, even more than 8, which, 8's good. Not saying 8's terrible, I love 8, but I always go back to Wii. I can't tell you why. It's just I think that's gotta be my favorite game.
Opinion? I would have to go with probably Spider-Man for PlayStation 4. I got a lot of hours out of it. A lot of references that I caught being a Marvel fan, and I thought it was worth every penny. Even if you're not a Marvel fan, I think you get a good experience from the story.
There is no answer to this, and it has to be a video game, right? So My favorite video game is what I'll give you instead, because I can't decide that. My favorite video game is Zelda: A Link to the Past, so that's the one for the Super Nintendo. And I love that game because that is the game that I watched my mom play when I was young, so it's one of the first games that I remember kind of being able to play on my own once I was old enough. So I have like good memories of that, right? But also I have replayed it a bunch of times since, and I think that like it stands up, right? There's like a lot of exploration. It's, you know, like difficult enough, but not too easy. I love that the world is so expansive for what was possible then with, you know, technology at the time. So to me, that is my favorite game and always will be like my number one, just because of like the nostalgia and me connecting it to like my mom. And, you know, I play it, I would say, if not every year, every other year, just because like it's soothing to me. Like I'm just like, oh yeah, all right, get through this.
Do you consider gaming a sport?
Absolutely. 100% gaming is a sport. I do get the argument that it isn't, because there's not really a bunch of physical activity. You're not running. You don't have to condition your body for it, really. But it's absolutely a sport. It takes skill. It takes dedication. You have to train. You have to practice. You're not just good at a game.
Yeah, I guess I'd say esports, it counts as esports because it's not that physical activity, but it's that mental activity and the strategy of it. So it really just forces you to focus on like, okay, if I'm gonna go into this game and do this against like this person that I've never met before and I don't know what their strat is, I kind of have to have like these different approaches that I can take.
Well, I think you can be competitive with something without it being a sport. I think sports, you can call it an e-sport, but it is an e-sport. I think that is both opposition to a sport. Like if somebody's playing football and like professionally, there's a level of skill and effort that goes into that you don't really get any of that from being a professional gamer. Like if I find out that I'm sitting next to Tom Brady on the bus, I'll be like, wow, that's cool. But if I find out I'm sitting like next to like Ninja, I'll be like, he plays Fortnite, I can do that.
So I define a sport as internal, external rewards, athletic skill, mental, physical, winning championships. And there's certain aspects of that gaming falls under. I think the mental side, I think there's awards if you're with a team and for individual. Personally, I struggle with like the competition side, like the physical side, but I know the argument of like controlling with your hands and stuff like that and movement. So for me personally, I don't consider gaming a sport, but I can understand why somebody would believe that it is.
Yeah, I guess so. I wouldn't put it on the same shelf as other physical sports, but you could definitely consider it a sport. You have players, a lot of if you're in a community, you know said players' names and stats very similarly. You get paid for playing it.
You know, gaming is a sport insofar as it is, you know, something that people have embraced as a competition that they're gonna watch and put money on and stuff like that, right? I would say that video games becoming a sport is more a cultural and media-centered thing where people decided it was gonna be like sports, right? They decided it should go in the category of sports because we can make more money on it this way. But, you know, sports are games, right? So they do definitely match up, and it's not crazy that it's a sport.
What is your take on violent video games cause violent crimes?
I don't like that take. I disagree really hard. Video games don't make a person. You can't, that's not how it works. Just because I played Call of Duty doesn't mean I'm gonna go into a mall and shoot a bunch of people. I know better than that. I'm a boy. I'm playing a video game. I'm not gonna go do that in real life. So, I feel like it's just so straw man. It doesn't hold water. It's like violent video games make violent people. No, they don't. Violent people make violent people. It's their upbringing. It's what they're surrounded by. It's not one thing. It can't possibly be this one thing that is cause and effect. It's not because you play video games, you're a violent person.
I think it is a weird stretch. It is a conversation to have, like how can video games influence people who go out and commit violent acts? But I think blaming all of it on the video game is that stretch, because you have to take into account like the person themselves, like how do they differentiate reality to video games, and what's their background, because I think I could play video games and pretty violent games and I don't think I'd go out wanting to kill people. I think that's very scary to even think about. So it definitely depends on the person.
That's always been iffy. I'm not gonna pretend that violent people aren't, how do I phrase this? Video games might be something that they're drawn to, but I don't think, if they were gonna do something stupid, they were always gonna do something stupid. I don't think running people over in GTA has any effect on whether or not they do something like that in real life. It's just, everybody, unless you're like really messed up in the head, and that's not a lot of people. There's 8 billion of us on Earth. Compared to that, it's not even remotely a lot. But unless you're really messed up in here, you can tell that it's fake.
Violent video games cause violent crimes. I mean, I watch a lot of MMA, and I'm not out there just doing mixed martial arts on the street, so I don't think that necessarily equates to being a violent person. For somebody who has violent tendencies, I can see them being attracted to games and violent games. I also think I worry about young adults and the content in general that they're able to, because I think you're just in general, take it outside of video games. Just today, it's so you have such very easily have access to content on YouTube in general. So I don't think this is just a video game issue. I just think parents, it's just hard to control every device, every digital platform that your kids are on, and so you just do the best you can. And that's why, like for my son, I waited until this year to even allow him to play video games. So, but I don't think it's, you just have to be careful, monitor the language and the content and the type of games that they're using.
Is it difficult controlling that in your own home, or?
Yeah, because like the algorithms aren't perfect. So a lot of times I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old at home. So if I'm making dinner for the 3-year-old and my 6-year-old's just on YouTube for kids, but it's not, the algorithm's not perfect, then he clicks around, he gets lost in, and then all of a sudden he's watching a video he shouldn't be. And then of course I take the tablet away, make him change the video and whatnot. It's not perfect, but you do the best you can. And it used to be like if you watch television with your kids, when I was growing up, I was watching with my parents in the living room. I didn't have my own devices. I didn't have my own tablet. I didn't have my own phone. That stuff didn't come out until, much later in my life. So all of you are growing up, high school, college students are growing up with like your own personal devices, which is a lot different. So it's just, again, having settings, controlling the settings, reviewing content, explaining things to your kids. It's not that it's harder, it's just paying attention more and being involved more.
Violence in video games causing crimes, I would have to disagree with. A lot of people use the argument that since you're physically doing it, I guess, in the game, it causes more. But it's still a picture on your screen, so saying that has more impact than watching a violent movie or show, I think, is just incorrect. It depends on the timing. Like, people in the 80s thought that Dungeons and Dragons caused violence and Satanism and stuff like that, and times change, so going based on that, I would assume that further into the future, people will move past that as well.
I don't find any truth in that, right? Like, I have looked at a lot of different studies. There are enough studies that say it does, and there are enough studies that say that it doesn't, that I would say ultimately it's inconclusive, right? Like, there isn't necessarily an answer to that. I do think that video games get scapegoated a lot because it's easy, right? There's actually a lot more violence, realistically, like on TV and in movies than in video games, if you consider all video games, right? But from my knowledge and my research and area, I don't think that there is a connection there, right? Like, I think it's other reasons why that stuff happens And you know, also video games are just like popular, right? Like everyone's gonna play them, and you know, it's more like if you're an aggressive person, you might be more interested in aggressive games, right?
Do video games hinder your social skills?
This is a good one, and I can't say I've heard it before, or like super often. I think that there's definitely a fine line between like gaming a lot and then gaming too much. I think that people that game too much can definitely start to suffer from some kind of like, it's not that they don't know how to interact with people, but more that they have a hard time. So like, I don't know. I don't think it's exactly correlated. I don't think it's cause and effect. But I think that people who have like lesser people skills tend to keep to themselves more and maybe, you know, dive into those worlds and live more in those worlds than with other people.
Yeah, I think having that screen in front of you, especially if you're not able to differentiate reality, it can hinder being able to interact with people both online and in person. But again, it does depend on the person, because if you're going to a video game as an escape from the world, then it would definitely hinder the way that you approach people in real life if you're looking for an escape from them.
Not at all. My best friend of 6 years, I met him on Animal Crossing, and we have met 2 or 3 times in real life now. We have talked probably every day since June of 2018.
Wow.
I meet people on Minecraft, on Fortnite, on Roblox sometimes. There's people I met on Roblox years ago that I still talk to. All of my friends who religiously play video games are functioning human beings, bar one. But you know, it might not help for everybody, but it doesn't hurt.
Do I think video games hinder social skills? I think this is a technological issue. I don't think I think it's being social if you're playing video games and you're playing with a group of people. I mean, you're interacting with somebody, you're having conversation. I do worry about engagement. I think in general with technology, I find we're more comfortable behind a screen. If we go to a doctor's office, we can't talk to somebody. Everybody, 10 people in the room are looking down their phones instead of having conversation. Like, we're uncomfortable in certain environments, but we're more comfortable behind a screen. So I think it's more of a technological issue overall, as not just devoted to video games. But I think you can be social around video games.
I would say no, because I've met a lot of people through games, people I've only known for a few days or years at this point. Because you have the connection, being like you both enjoy this game that you've met each other on, and you learn at least like talking social skills. You won't learn any stuff like body language and stuff like that over the screen, but you get to talk to other people, at least in this modern day.
In what ways do you think you can learn from video games?
There are messages and morals in every single story there is, be it a video game, a book, a movie, anything. So I think video games are honestly more potent for storytelling and like giving that moral message or just sending a message in general. Because if it is centered around that main character, that you're playing, or whoever is playing, and it's telling that story, it's exposing you to those ideas, and I really think that it can be a really good medium for like lessons and like learning about people.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's all these different games that, I mean, like Syndicate was very history-based, or a game like Detroit Become Human, you learn the choices that you make affect all these different interactions, and it doesn't seem like at first that you would learn stuff from video games, but after you finish one, you're like, wow, that was pretty rough.
Can you learn from video games? Sure, why not? I mean, you can learn from a variety of things. I think you learn from watching television. Watching television and film, it teaches you on relationships, and it teaches you about communication styles, other cultures. I think the same thing is tied in with video games too. I think social media platforms are learning communities. We learn from one another, so I think taking in various different content, absolutely.
I do, at least for the games I play, being that they're more story focused, you get to experience character growth and character development. Much like a movie, you can learn lessons from watching a movie or show. Are you going to learn anything from playing Fortnite? Probably not. But more single player games, I'd say you can definitely learn a life lesson or something to that extent.
Do you think video games are a waste of time?
No, I think it's a wonderful way to pass the time if you're just sitting in your room not doing anything, and you know, if you don't want to read, you don't want to watch a movie, you don't really want to talk to anybody for a little bit, or you just want to hang out with your friends but from home, it's just a great way to build that connection.
Probably, let's be honest. There's so many things that I could be doing, that I should be doing, that I don't because I'm playing a game. But it's just, if you have nothing else to do, it's that you're not hurting anybody. If you do have some other things to do, then you should probably get on those. And I'm very guilty of that myself. But I mean, it's just a form of entertainment. If it's not video games, it's going to be movies. 100 years ago, it was books.
No, I don't think they're a waste of time. Like I've said earlier, you get a lot of value. Either a good story, interesting characters, same stuff as a movie or show. And if you're not doing anything in the moment anyway, like, might as well do something you enjoy.
What do you think about the current state of video games and how they've evolved over the years?
I think that video gaming and video games in general have seen a wicked upturn. In the last 10 years even, the quality of games has gone through the roof. Even we're going back to Starfield, because I do want to talk about that a little more. It's a beautiful game, and Bethesda's been making games like that for years, and it's only gotten prettier. So I think with the evolution of it and the way that games are going now, it's looking more realistic, it's looking more like a movie, it's looking more like a real actual story that you want to get invested in, instead of those, Harry Potter PS2 graphics. But Starfield and a company like Bethesda, while they do make absolutely breathtaking games, gorgeous storytelling, and the worlds they build are phenomenal, I think that Skyrim has much more replayability than Starfield out the box. And that says a lot because Skyrim came out 12 years ago. 12 years ago. And I still go back to that game and I still play through all of the story. I love talking to the NPCs. I love doing the quests. I love everything about that game. And Starfield got tired in 3 plays. So I think that definitely speaks to video games now, because while there are some games that can look beautiful and technically they're fantastic and they fly off the shelves and they're awesome and they make a shitload of money for this company, if you can't play it again, which is a lot of these games, then it's not worth it. And a little fear that I have, I guess, is kids growing up aren't gonna find the games that they love so much that they're gonna play until they're 40 years old. But I'm gonna go back to Skate 2 and Skyrim on my deathbed. I'm gonna be buried with my Spox. So I don't know. I think while video games are getting a lot more interesting and beautiful and nice to look at and fun to play, I feel like they're putting a lot more money and time into that. Get it now, play it now, and then wait for the next one to come out. I feel like that's kind of taking over, instead of hey, we spent a lot of time really making this game fun for you guys to play, and then play again to get all the details you missed, and then play again because you loved the story, and then again because you missed even more details. I think we're losing a lot of that.
Well, with virtual reality, I think it's pretty scary, honestly, because I think that's where the line gets drawn between playing a game in the safety of your home and just, knowing that it's not real, but then when you put that VR headset on and you're actually in the game, I think that can really affect people who aren't able to draw those like differences, that they're in a game, they're not in real life, but it does feel very real.
Current state, I'm not super interested in right now. A lot of companies are taking their formulas that did work and using Fortnite, which is a live service. Games like Call of Duty and Diablo charge you $70 for the base game and then expect you to pay more money to play the game with battle passes and limited events. The new Suicide Squad game got a lot of hate because you're paying $70 for a 10-hour game and they expect you to pay more to get the rest of the story that comes out later. Makes you almost want loot boxes back, which were kind of like video game slot machines. But at least you're getting something for the money you paid.
What do you think the future of gaming holds?
The future of gaming. I think with the lucrative nature of esports, I think that that aspect of gaming is going to get really popular. I really hope, at least. I think it's going to get really big. I think it's going to start making a lot of money, and I think it's going to be really actually respected, which is really exciting. But for games themselves, I'm honestly a little worried. Because a lot of companies that are pushing out the games that we used to love are really faltering now and dropping the ball, fumbling the bag, doing some horrible things to these games we love. But then there are so many indie studios and companies that are pushing out games that they've been working on for 7 years and had a budget of $30,000, and it's a better game than Baldur's Gate 3. Because I don't even know what the fuck that game is about, but it got Game of the Year. But I don't know, I hope that more indie studios get the love that they deserve, and I hope that these companies that are just trying to bleed the consumer dry stop. I hope they get put in their place, and I hope the consumers, or the gamers at least, are like, hey, we're not gonna keep funding you. We're not gonna keep buying the same game. As much as I love the franchise, I'm not gonna give you $75 for a reskin of the same game I was playing 6 months ago. And I don't know, I hope to see companies like these massive conglomerate companies just stop with the cash grabs. Just make a good game again. We know you have it in you. We've played your games. Just do it again. It's not that hard. You have even more technology now. You have better people. There are people going into the industry now that have experience from they were 13 years old because they've been playing games, and then they were like, hey, I want to make a game. So they went and they coded their own game, and they've been doing that for years. Now they're in the workforce. Hire those people, because that's the passion we need back in gaming. People who want to make fun games that people are going to enjoy, not making the same game because it's going to make money.
I'm not very optimistic, not gonna lie. I've always been very skeptical of the digital future because, first of all, you can buy a used copy of a game for $10. I just bought Red Dead 2 for $20. It was new and it was $20. On the Xbox store, I'm pretty sure it's still $60. And if you lose that option, you're not gonna be able to sell your own games, you're not gonna be able to get them for cheap. You're gonna have to, the only way to get, I guess on PC, you have a little more options because there's Steam, there's Epic, there's the Windows Store, etc. But on console, you got the Xbox Store or the PS Store or the Nintendo Store. And if they go all digital, that's your only option. Something interesting happened fairly recently. There are rumors that Xbox is going to transition to being a third-party publisher, which means that they're going to start putting Xbox exclusives, and I'm not talking about the small stuff, I'm talking about Halo. There's rumors that they're gonna come to PlayStation. And on paper, that's not a bad idea, but in practice, if you have two consoles with their own libraries, and one console plays both libraries, no one's gonna get the other, which means the other goes away, and then you've only got the one. And we all know that competition is what keeps everybody in check. All I'm saying is if Xbox goes away, the PS6 is going to cost $1,000 and games are going to cost $100. You can quote me on that.
It's expensive. I don't know how everybody affords it. I'm very impressed, especially the price of video games. So I am intrigued and interested to see how much these systems are going to go for when there'll be future releases. I don't know. I'm very interested to see what direction that's going to go in. And I don't think gaming's going to go away. I think it's, for many people, it's going to be their way to watch stories as opposed to what would prefer watching a story through video gaming as opposed to television or film. So
I feel like the more companies do the Battle Pass route and more like live service games, I feel like the more people will speak up about not wanting that. And very similar to how 10 years ago we had loot boxes and we switched to Battle Passes, I feel like Battle Passes will eventually fade out and we'll get a new system for them to use.
I think that video games will continue growing in popularity. I think that because, again, video game technology is so closely related to military technology, as we push forward with that kind of stuff, like video games will take that technology and then, you know, implement it into gaming, right? So, you know, I think that definitely more immersive gaming is probably going to be more popular for people who have the time and space and money to afford that stuff, right? So like the kinds of accessories where you can like feel an impact from a bullet, or you know, you're strapped into the gaming treadmill so you can like walk around and feel like you're actually walking around, you know, more realistic peripherals. But we are already seeing that, like, you know, we have a lot of stuff that could require movement, right? Like there are augmented reality games, virtual reality, right? But at the end of the day, a lot of us still go back to laying in bed and playing on our phone or sitting on a couch and playing a video game, right? We do like to just be comfortable and kind of just sit. So I think that there's always going to be that kind of gaming. And I just think that we'll just have more options, really.
Thank you for being.
Dude, thank you
here,
for
man.
asking me. I love this.
Of course, man. I enjoyed this so much. Thank you for being here, man.
There's a vibe. All right. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. This is a very insightful interview.
Thank you.
That's about all the questions I have for you today. Thank you for meeting with me. This is super insightful. Thank you again.
Glad to be here.
Right, Tom, thank you for your time. I really appreciate this.
thank you. The pleasure was yours.
Chris, thank you for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. All right, thank you for taking the time with me today.
Thank you.